Hello everyone. Welcome to Bothakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. I'm your friend Atri and today I'm here with another segment of Current Affairs 365 dated 2nd of November 2021. This is your one-stop solution for any news and updates which will help you prepare for your civil services examination. And along with that, it is also going to be beneficial for any other Assam state government services. So don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram for any further details related to job notifications. The first news of today is about climate change and the World Heritage Sites. This will be tagged under the GS paper 3 and under the subtopics of environmental pollution and degradation, environment conservation, and environmental impact assessment. This news comes after the first ever scientific assessment for the amounts of greenhouse gases that are emitted and absorbed by the forests when it comes to UNESCO World Heritage Sites, which are those forests which are termed under the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And this study has found that these forests they play a very significant role in mitigating climate changes. These sites, World Heritage Sites, they play a vital role in mitigating climate change by absorbing around 190 million tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere each year. And carbon sequestration by the World Heritage Forests over a long period has led to uh, carbon storage of approximately 13 billion tons. And if all these stored carbon were to be released into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, it would be almost similar to emitting 1.3 times the world's total annual carbon dioxide emissions from the fossil fuels. However, one alarming point here is that 10 forests they have released more carbon than they sequester due to pressure from human activities as well as climate changes. UNESCO, under its World Heritage Marine Program, it lists 50 sites across the globe for their unique values, and they represent just 1% of the global ocean area. These 1% they comprise of at least 15% of the global blue carbon assets. Blue carbon is organic carbon, which is mainly obtained from decaying plants, animals, wood, roots, and leaves, and it is captured and stored by coastal and marine ecosystems. India's Sundarbans National Park is among the 5 sites that have the highest blue carbon stocks globally available. Now, if we see the major reason for these type of high emissions, at some sites there are clearance of land for agricultural uh, uh, causes, and this leads to greater emissions as compared to sequestration. Along with that, we also see other natural events like wildfires, hurricanes, etc., which contributes to higher emissions at different sites. Currently, we should go for strong and sustained protection of these UNESCO World Heritage Sites and their surrounding landscapes in order to ensure that these forests they continue to act as strong carbon sinks and stores for the future generation. We also should rapidly respond to climate related events and try to maintain and strengthen the ecological connectivity through improved landscape management. Together, there is a need for an integrated protection approach. Okay, integrating the continued protection of UNESCO World Heritage sites into local, national, and international development strategies that is going to solve the problem for our and also will be helpful for our future generations. It should also be in line with Paris Climate Agreement, the post 2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, and Sustainable Development Goals. World Heritage Sites, we all know that a World Heritage Site is a place that is listed by UNESCO for its special culture or physical significance. This list is maintained by the International World Heritage Program that is administered by the UNESCO World Heritage Committee. And India currently has 40 World Heritage Sites. The latest inclusion here is Dholavira from Gujarat. The next news is related to a protocol which has been adopted by the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in its 19th meeting of Prosecutors General, which was held in New Delhi. This protocol is regarding strengthening cooperation in case of preventing and combating the growing danger of human trafficking, especially when it comes to women and children. The current chair of Shanghai Cooperation Organization is Tajikistan. Presently, it comprises of 8 members, and India was made an observer in the year 2005. And since 2017, India and Pakistan has become its permanent members. Headquarters of SCO is at Beijing, China, and its summit is held annually, where the chairmanship goes to the member states for a year on rotation basis. Now, coming to the main point of human trafficking, it involves recruitment, transportation, harboring, or recruitment of persons by means of threat or by any other force for the purpose of exploitation. Now, when it comes to exploitation, these people who are trafficked, they are mainly used for prostitution or any other form of sexual exploitation. Then they are made to do forced labor or services, and are even used, and their organs are even removed forcefully. So these are the type of exploitation that these people are subjected to. Now, regarding this protocol, it calls for the continuation of exchange of national legislation in order to combat the growing danger of trafficking in persons. This protocol also seeks to provide protection and assistance to the victims of trafficking within their competence. And it calls for cooperation between the educational organizations of Shanghai Cooperation Organization's member states in the field of advanced training of the prosecutors, whose competence includes combating trafficking in persons, especially when it comes to women and children. If we have a look at the relevant laws in our country, then the most prominent premier legislation to deal with this issue is the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act of the year 1956. Then Article number 23 and 24 of the Indian Constitution is also regarding right against exploitation. We have the Juvenile Justice Act, Information Technology Act, the Prevention of Child Labor Act, and Bonded Labor Abolition Act, which are prominent among others. Now, having a look at the India's efforts when it comes to combating human trafficking. This year in July, the Ministry of Women and Child Development, they released the draft anti-trafficking bill, uh, that is the Trafficking in Persons Bill of 2021. India has also ratified the United Nations Convention on Translational Organized Crime, which, among others, has a protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially when it comes to children and women. India has also ratified the SARC Convention on Preventing and Combating Trafficking of women for prostitution. Then the Ujjwala scheme that was launched in the year 2007, it is working towards putting an end to the trafficking of children and women. Here, the main objective of this scheme is to prevent, rescue, rehabilitate, and reintegrate the victims who are trafficked for commercial sexual exploitation. Along with that, our country also have various initiatives like Swadhar Greh scheme, Sakhi, universalization of women helpline. All these provides for supportive institutional frameworks and mechanism in order to address concerns of those women who are affected by this sort of violence. The next news is related to agricultural marketing and agricultural resources. This comes from a research paper that is titled Integrated Farming with Intercropping Increases Food Production while Reducing Environmental Footprint. Now, the key findings of this paper, it can provide us many informations which are going to help the small farm holders of our country, how they can grow more food and have reduced environmental impact, negative environmental impact. Now, whatever was discussed in this paper, whatever was given in this paper, the key findings, I have highlighted the points here and I'll try to explain the same. First is related to relay planting, how they enhances the total yield. Relay planting, it means planting of different crops in the same plot of land, one after another, in the same season. And this can be practiced, and there are some examples of from the state coming from the states of Telangana, Karnataka, and Maharashtra, where the small farmers, they are earning money out of relay farming. What they do, they plant onions, turmeric, chilies, then garlic, or even some native fruits, and makes profit during the same time, okay, through relay farming. It also means that there will be better distribution of labor, and the spread of insects will also be lesser compared to normal times when they don't go for relay farming. And any legumes of that sort, what they do, they tend to add more nitrogen to the soil. So it is also benefiting the soil quality. It is also improving the soil quality. But again, there are certain difficulties and challenges which are involved when it comes to relay cropping, like mechanization and management requirements. These are somewhat higher compared to the conventional way of cropping, just going for just one variety. Next is strip cropping. This has been practiced in the US, where the fields are comparatively larger than those in India, and there they grow crops like wheat along with corn and soya bean in the same farm in an alternative manner. This needs large plots of land. In India also, where there are large fields, when it comes to the ones which are owned by cities or state governments, there they can go for this practice. The land can be divided into strips, and the strips of grass that are left to grow between the two different variety of crops. Planting of trees in order to create shelters can also help in stabilizing the deserts, and this has actually practically helped in improving the condition of western part of our country. Next point is soil mulching and no tillage. Soil mulching is means to grow crop like straw in addition to the major crops such as wheat or rice. No tillage or reduction in tillage, it will increase the annual crop yield. It has been statistically studied that this has increased the annual crop yield by about 50% and has decreased environmental footprint by around 17% compared to the traditional monoculture cropping. And these methods are not easy for small farmers in our country, that is true, but they can be practiced at least in larger farms which are owned by industry and governments. And soil mulching, it requires keeping all the bare soil covered with uh, commodities like straw, leaves, and even when the land is in, even when that particular plot of land is in use. So they provide a layer of such materials like straw, leaves, and that increases the yield, and that helps in improving the soil quality as well. And erosion is curtailed for that reason. The moisture is kept intact, and the beneficial organisms, they are also kept in place. For example, earthworms, and they also get the same set of benefits for not doing over tilling of the soil, or for not going for uh, extreme tillage of that particular plot of land. Now, how it is going to help the Indian population is that, as per current statistics, a significant population of farmers in our country, they are small farmers, they who owns less than 2 hectares of land, and about 70% of its rural households, they still depend primarily on agriculture for their livelihood, with 82% of farmers being small and marginal. So if the small farmers, they go for such practices, they add such innovative ideas, they can go for they can that can increase their annual yield and will help in doubling their income. And also, the total production of food grains in 2017-18 was estimated to be around 275 million tons. So if they go for such practices, if they include them, then it might help in increasing the total production of food grains in the upcoming years. The next news is about India's ocean research vessel named Sagar Nidhi. It was commissioned in 2008 for the country's marine research program, and it is the third research vessel after Sagar Purvi and Sagar Paschimi. This vessel is capable of carrying out geoscientific, meteorological, and oceanographic research, and is also designed with blue water capability with ranges of up to 10,000 nautical miles. They can last for voyages up to 45 days. A blue water capability refers to an ocean going fleet which is able to operate on the high seas far from its nation's home ports. It is India's first flagged research ship which has reached the 66-degree south latitude, facing 11 storms, high wind speed, and witnessing some of the nature's harshest conditions. Currently, the concerned ministry has 6 ships which are used for many ocean studies and applications, including ocean observation. These research vessel ships, these are required for exploration and also for harnessing ocean resources for the blue economy. Along with that, it is also used in participation when it comes to search and research operations for implementation of the Deep Ocean mission. They are also used for launching tsunami monitoring systems and remotely operable vehicles for identifying mines as well as gas hydrates. It will also be used in conducting oceanic studies on the fuel of future gas hydrates and can also find evidence related to origin of life and cures for chronic diseases. Chronic diseases are those which can last for several years or for lifetime.
And this was all for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it will be helpful. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another segment of Current Affairs 365 only on Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. Till then, take good care of yourselves and keep learning. Bye-bye.
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS একাডেমি প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা। বৰঠাকুৰ IAS একাডেমি।